Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast. And I'm your host, Justin Furtado, Coach Furtado. We're bridging wisdom from generation to generation. And today we have an absolutely wonderful guest. He is the founder of Balanced Excellence and has been coaching for many years, coached hockey for college hockey for over 20 years, and has been coaching youth sports for quite some time as well. He has been speaking all over the U.S. and internationally as well on youth sports and talking about bringing back balance to youth sports. What about that? What about bringing back fun, building trust? Now this episode is going to be a great one for trust and building that environment in the whole 9 yards. So without further ado, our guest of the day, VJ Stanley. Let's dive in. Hello and welcome to the Bridging Impact Podcast. VJ, I'm thrilled to have you on. I'm thrilled to have our conversation about youth sports, leadership, and the whole 9 yards. Who knows where we'll go today? So without further ado, let's have some fun. Without further ado, the first question that we ask all of our guests first is, it's a very simple, not a loaded question whatsoever. What is your definition of impactful leadership, and how does it show up in your everyday work?
Well, I might have a little bit different definition than most people. I think impactful leadership is making yourself not needed. That's the bottom line. That you have the people that you're leading, not necessarily you're in front, but they end up being better at what you're trying to teach them to do than you are, where you then become a guide and you stay in the background. As I like to say, it's not about you, it's about them and their journey.
I love that. And I think that's a great starting point for us to kind of go down the rabbit hole of talking about coaching and leadership. And I think, you bring up an important point, that something that, especially when I'm still a young leader and something I'm trying to outlearn is, I think, talking about how coaches or whoever's in a room to make it better off when they end up leaving. So could you expand on what you mean by impactful leadership by your definition?
The idea in the end is that it's all about their journey. When I was in my family business before I became a head hockey coach in college, I was very, very young, working with 30, 40, 50-year-old successful businessmen. And you have to learn how much humility and appreciation come into leadership, and how much it really is trying to understand the value of a relationship, not in terms of the benefit for you, but the learning experience for both.
Right. So for me right now, I think that's actually a great question for me right now. I recently have been promoted and I am responsible. I'm in the leadership position with a lot of coaches, maybe not that are a lot older than me, but are similar age, and we kind of came in together. So sometimes I almost struggle a little bit with, the imposter syndrome of why me as a leader. So for you in that situation with you and your family business, I'm curious how, what advice would you give to me who's in that situation right now?
Well, it's different for each one. I was also the youngest coach in the history of high school hockey. So I was literally 4 years older, a little over 4 years older than my seniors.
Yeah.
So I had the dynamic in my family business with the older and the younger. But I say this to everybody all the time when that question comes up, and it comes up quite a bit, is that in that process, and I don't really like the word process, but people can identify it. I like to refer to it as the journey. It's all about the journey. In that journey, I think the single most important thing you can do as a leader is ask the people that you're leading, what can I do for you? It's that simple. Stop trying to force an agenda. Stop trying to make them better. Ask them, what can I do for you? And then there's a whole science behind that I didn't know at the time, with the amygdala and the firing the synapses and the hippocampus and everything. But the simple thing is, what can I do for you? My business card when I was a head coach of college hockey did not say coach. It said teacher of men's ice hockey. And I think if we learn that we are not above, we are part of, then I think it becomes much easier to lead and much more beneficial.
Yeah, we're a part of. I think that's an interesting point, and I'd love for you to expand on, because this is something I'm actually was literally thinking about right before this. Is like right now, we're coaching summer camp, and I've been working with kids for 5-6 years, and we have some basketball coaches who have played overseas, and we had this conversation a little bit before, but are kind of like challenged a little bit with the teaching aspect of coaching youth sports. So I'd love for you to expand more on like teaching, like the role of teaching in coaching.
Well, for those players, and I've worked a lot with professional hockey players in the camps I've done and run, and I tell them quietly, never in front of anybody else, but I tell them quietly, what you do that comes natural, what you do that excelled, what you got with hard work, 99% of these children will never experience. So try to think again from their point of view, what can I do to help? And the simple answer to that, Justin, is it's a 3-part answer to it, but it's very simple. It's what do they like to do to have fun? Because the more fun they have, the more they're going to want to do it. And the more they're going to do it, the more they're going to excel. We have to remember that children are competitive by nature. I ask this question to everybody. How many of you have an older brother, younger brother, a niece, nephew, whatever it is, where the older one dominates the younger one? The younger one, I was the youngest, looks for revenge. There's already that competition. So we as parents spend more time trying to get our kids to get along than we do to get them compete, because they're already competitive. And then the second part of that is you simply go to a phys ed teacher of the age appropriate in the school district that you're in and ask them for advice. And that's the third one, combines the other two, is reach out and ask for help. Don't worry or think that you have to have the answers. The more questions you have, the more the children will trust you. And in the end, that trust and relationship is almost 80% of coaching.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a big thing. Is if you're, so I say I'm a coach and I walk in first day on my job, and I don't want to yell, right? I got to build that relationship, that trust with them, so that way there's some sort of trust that they trust me, that when I hold them accountable, which is going to lead me into my next question, that I have their best interest in them. So with that, I'm curious, with building trust, I guess it's a 2-part question. Number one is what are different ways to build trust? Obviously player coach relationship, and you talk about asking questions. And then the second part of my question is, when you're building that trust, how do you make sure that you're keeping and holding a standard of accountability and discipline without tearing them down?
Okay, let's answer the second part first. Don't worry about that. Once you establish their trust, you're not going to have to do that. We concentrate way too much on that. That's a result of the first part. So I'm going to answer the first part now. And our company's Balanced Excellence. It's about balance. What you want to do with these kids, and I say this, I actually do it in the beginning, almost every presentation. Now, these are with adults all the way up to 60, 20 to 60 that are coaches or even business people. We play Simon Says. Competitive juices are there. The movement is there. We know from psychology that if I get these people to move, they're able to retain almost 50% more of what I say. So I do it, I don't want to say the opposite, but a different approach is what I try and do. And when I teach, or even when I'm doing with the kids, it really, truly doesn't matter. I try and get a base of fun, laughter, communication, and I'm reading their eyes and their body language. but I'm trying as hard as I can not to push the envelope, because we get way too wrapped up in thinking these kids need to be the best that they can be. They don't. It's a journey. What we want to do is get them to be able to think, to be able to play, and to be able to be independent. Then we can teach them sports.
Yeah, I think that last part, independence, and I think that kind of goes back to your very first answer of impactful leadership. And I'd love for you to expand a little bit more on how to cultivate that independence and how coaches can stop being, I guess, hover coaches and yelling every play, oh, you missed a basket, XYZ, right? Like, how do we give that independence and create and foster that within our teams and our organizations?
Okay, again, I'm going to kind of do an opposite answer to that. Leave the kids out. How do we get to what I said in the beginning, that you're not needed? So let's again take the science, and that's what we do. We take science instead of tradition. In other words, the way it's always been. We throw that out the window. We use psychology instead of theory, and we use data instead of hunches. So let's just use basketball, and I can send you one of our things that we did for an urban center, and I'll send it to you of how it worked. But what we want to think is, what is it that an age appropriate 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 child would want to do to have fun? Now, a lot of people say there's different definitions of fun. No, they want to play. Nobody ever wanted to be Stephen Curry sitting on the bench during a game. They never dreamed about that. They never dreamed of being Mike Trout sitting on the bench. They never dreamed of being Connor McDavid playing hockey, whatever else I'm missing. What they want to do is play. So let the organic notion of play, let that take these kids on their own journey. And that trust that I talk about, Justin, let me put it to you. I'm about as non-political as you can get. Can't stand politics. But I do believe the presidency is the difficult, and I don't care who's in office, it's the most difficult job in the world. I have the utmost respect for it, for the office. Doesn't necessarily mean I trust the person. See, trust is a reciprocal truth. I'm my father's son, I'm my brother's brother. However you put that, it's always true. Wherever there is lightning, there's electricity. But wherever there's electricity, there isn't necessarily lightning. So I know this is a long answer, but the coaches are trying way too hard to get respect. When you drive home at night, you don't care if it's a Mercedes or a Cadillac next to you. You want to trust that the guy or woman doesn't come over the line and hit you. So we've taken respect because it's so short term and it's so easy. You're disrespecting the game. You have to respect me. No. Let's get to trust, this reciprocal thing. Do you have that reciprocal relationship with your players? Just start there. Or are you this omnipresent guy because we're going to do it this way because that's the way it's always done, or that's the way you saw it on TV? We got to get away from that. Just chuck it right out the window and just let the kids have fun.
Trust. It seems like it's a theme that's coming over and over again, and talk about that fun in that play. And I'd love to just, shift a little bit of gears and talking about just like fun in the game and just like letting kids be kids and not professionalizing youth sports. And we talked this on the pre-pod call. You were talking about how it's like, a $5 billion industry. And so I'm curious, in your experience, what ways do we need to shift youth sports? Or I'll rephrase that question. What is the direction that we need to begin to start moving youth sports towards again?
It's the same thing. Just let the children have fun. I can give you a hundred stories, but let me just give you one quick one. I'm again working with some urban children, and in this atmosphere, there's school, then there's play, sports, all these things, and the coaches here are trying to win. So I convinced two of the coaches to stop trying to win, because really nobody knows how to win, and just work on fun and development. Well, this one kid wanted to play quarterback. It's indoors. So he let him play quarterback. He threw 2 interceptions and felt terrible. So another kid came in, took him aside, said, don't worry about it. Let's just do this. Just relax and have fun. Put another kid in quarterback. He saw that this kid wasn't having any fun, so he threw in the ball and the kid scored a touchdown. It's really that simple. Just keep giving them. Here's our saying, Justin. It's not my job to decide when, how, or even if the light goes on for youth sports and children's development. My goal, my job is to simply keep flipping the switch. It's their switch, their light, not mine.
Right. So you can't tell them to turn the switch on if they don't want to turn it on.
No, well, the other thing I say is I can't tell you what to do so that you will internalize it. See, what we're doing now is, instead of internalization, we're using extrinsic force, and that just doesn't last. It can't. So what we tell the coaches is that the idea here is to get these kids to a point where they can feel good about themselves and still be accountable and take risks in a safe, positive environment. No, you don't want anybody at work yelling at you. The kids make 3 decisions a second when they're playing. They don't need anybody yelling at them. And so I can't tell you, nor do I want to, how to do this, but I can and will create an environment where you can excel. And see, we're trying to coach the kids when we should be working on creating an environment that they can excel in. It's cart before the horse. And they see it on television, so they see other coaches doing it, and they do it. But what they don't understand is 70% of all kids quit playing sports by the time they're 13. And it's not because they're bored. It's because they're not having fun.
Right. Which is, leads to sedentary, lifestyles and inactivity, which is a whole nother rabbit hole. But I think you covered something that's interesting. It's intrinsic motivation and encouraging that within. So through your experience, what have you found to be very helpful to help kids with their intrinsic motivation and flipping on their own switch?
Take your ego out of it.
Yeah.
That's it. See, we're making this way too complicated. Take your ego out of it. I'll give you another story. I'm working at camp with a varsity baseball coach, and there's 6 teams that they've made in camp. And we get down to the championship game. And everybody has to play a different position every inning. Everybody gets to pitch that wants to pitch. So we're in the championship game, and this boy comes up to me, where they're 14 years old. And he says, Mr. Stanley, I'd like to pitch. Absolutely. Okay, have at it. He gets rocked. The varsity coach is watching. He comes, sits down next to me in the dugout. Now, this is a summer camp. These kids are paying money to play at the camp. And he goes, what are you going to do here? I go, I'm going to try and stay out of the sun. It's hot. I like the dugout here. It's nice and cool. And he goes, no, with the pitcher. Oh, so I yell out to the pitcher. He said, you okay? I said, yep. I said, are you injured? Nope. Do you want to come out? Nope. Okay, keep going. I said, that's what I'm going to do. He never had me back to coach again. Had to win that game. No. But if you follow this premise, I can teach you how to get an environment to be really, really successful. But absolutely nobody knows how to win. John Calipari, no matter what you want to say, is regarded as one of the top college coaches in the history of college coaching. 5 years ago, he won a national championship, I believe. 4 years ago, he didn't even make the finals. Or didn't even make the 64th. Then he was undefeated and lost in the semifinals. My Buffalo Bills went to 4 Super Bowls. Did they forget how to win? The owner of the Dallas Cowboys has said he would write a check right now, Jerry Jones, to win a Super Bowl. Nobody knows how to win. So we're trying to win and we don't know how. We don't know what it means. So why not create an environment where these kids can flourish?
Right. And it is creating an environment, and often, because I'm here in Los Angeles, and I'm not sure how closely you're a Bills fan, right? So the Bills and Rams are opening up the season against each other, and I'm a huge Sean McVay fan, and from what I understand and what I listen, and obviously I read, and obviously I don't always go in the locker room. Most people are pretty happy with the Rams culture that they have created an environment for players to thrive. Of course, they have tons of talent, but if you think about it, like, OBJ, he had problems with the Cleveland Browns, and, Jalen Ramsey had problems with the Jaguars, but there's no problems when they come to LA because there's an environment. So for coaches and other leaders of organizations, what are key components of that environment for people to want to stay and flourish?
Well, again, the first and foremost is, and I say this everywhere I speak, is we've got to get back to inclusion instead of exclusion. Inclusion, not exclusion. Only 10% of all the kids that are the best at the age of 10 are the best at 18. And we've worked with over 5,000. That's just a fact. So, and puberty changes everything. Again, what is the environment that they excel at? And they excel at play. They're already competitive. The second thing that is very important is that we understand that they all develop differently. The only thing that's alike by 2 13-year-olds is the fact that they're 13 years old. They don't learn, they don't talk, they don't run. So as we try and make them, remember now, children aren't mini adults, they're not micro-professional athletes, and they're certainly not remote-controlled robots attached to adults' joysticks and egos, is that we're not letting them be kids. Just let them be kids. The little league kid that picks his nose and picks flowers in left field, that's great. That's fine. There's no problem there. But what has happened is money has now turned this into an industry. Mm-hmm. And this industry is predicated on the fact that we're going to be the best, the greatest, the uniforms, the travel, the status, and for 99% of the kids, it just simply doesn't matter. So that environment that I keep talking about, you want to have inclusion. If you lose, you lose. I love to win. I've played and coached on over 30 championship teams. There's nothing like winning. But when we're talking about children, they have a different definition. 2, we have to understand that they go through this thing called Common Core, which I can't stand, and standardized testing. So we're literally having our children compete with other children in terms of their status and scores. And to think that that doesn't carry on to their social life or play is misguided. And the third thing is we have to, and listen, you can do whatever you want, but I've had a lot of success doing this, so might want to give it a shot, because one of my favorite expressions when I get grief, Justin, is tell me how your way's working, because I don't think you'd be coming to me if everything was hunky-dory. The third thing is you just have to stop adulting children. Just stop. When you go to a game, just cheer. When you drive to a game or practice, don't say a word. Say, I love you. That's it. Hope you have fun. On the way home, I love you. Hope you had fun. Because 30% of all the kids that play youth and high school sports, according to the President's Council on Fitness, don't reach the minimum amount of exercise when they're on a team. It's unbelievable. It's a pretty stunning stat.
That is a stunning stat. So I'm curious, I would like to go back a little bit, and we've talked about play quite a bit. Like, what does that look like in a practice, right? You can give, obviously some examples for hockey or really any sport, but like how can coaches implement that? and really any youth organizations, because I know I have some listeners here too that work at Boys and Girls Clubs, but just like implementing that fun and play.
Yeah, we don't work, probably 30% is hockey, soccer, baseball, basketball, lacrosse, a little bit. I don't do much of track at all, some tennis. But again, you start every practice with Simon Says. I think in our pre-talk, you said you do red light, green light. You just go Google play, age appropriate play. But like I said, we use Simon Says with adults. I can't stress enough and how important movement is. And we, even at the college level, for our warm-up, before we started practice, we played music. Start the practice with dance. Oh no, coach, we can't. We've got to have all these drills. We've got to have cones. We got to have layups. No. When I send you this video, what we did with this urban thing, and we've done these projects all over, you'll be stunned at how quickly and easily they gravitate to it. But music, play, age-appropriate play, nothing to do with the sport. But what you need to understand is every time you do this, you're teaching them the basic fundamentals of all sports. We have 6-year-olds that can't write. They don't have the hand strength. We have 8-year-olds that can't slide. We have 10-year-olds that can't jump and stop. So let's forget about the sports here, people, and let's get movement back where these kids feel comfortable in their bodies and feel comfortable in play. And then we can take them to the next level. Again, we put the cart before the horse. Let's get back to fundamentals.
Right. So it's even before, you pick up a ball, it's the fundamentals of moving, of, lateral footwork. Yeah. I mean, I know a big one, obviously red light, green light is a staple for me because it works on, stopping, and then you can start adding, a jab step in there and, you're working on body control, yellow light, green light, boom, accelerating. So there's so much you can learn with that.
And people listening to this podcast, he just went through red light, green light, yellow light. And when you play this back, watch his body language, how more in tune, intense, and agreeable his body language was to those three things because they were triggering the positive receptors in his brain.
So you're talking about how I was talking?
Yeah, just how you were moving when you're talking about red light, green light. It's that simple. We're making it way too complicated, Justin.
Keep it simple. Keep it simple. I'm curious if you could share something from our pre-pod call about how, number one, coaches or, youth leaders can work with parents and the story you shared about, parents, and also how sometimes coaches also do this as well.
Well, are you talking about the exam?
Yeah, I'm talking about the exam.
All right. So let me go back. In my presentations, I normally find a teacher. And almost always there's a teacher. And if not, there's a doctor. And I spoke to the AOSSM National Convention in Vegas. They were all doctors, but they were parents. And so I asked them what you get a teacher, and let's just say it was 7th grade social studies. And I would say, well, how many classes a day do you teach? Well, 5 or 6. I said, do you teach anything else? No, social studies. I said, oh, okay. I said, how many weeks a year you do that? Oh, like 46 weeks or whatever. Oh, okay. I said, so that's a job, right? And they'll go, yeah. And I go, well, then why do we want to have our children do the same thing with play? Why turn play into a job? And then I get the murmur in the audience, and then I go to what I told Justin, is that I asked the teacher, do you give the children the answers when they're taking a test? Well, of course not. Well, then why, as parents and coaches, are you giving them the answers on the playing field instead of letting them learn? And really, are you a parent outside the classroom when your child is taking the test going, B, oh my God, it was B. I can't believe you didn't put B on that. What is wrong with you? And look at people have good intentions. But what has happened is the snowball has rolled down so far is that people actually think that it's real, and it's not. It's an imaginary. The race for scholarships doesn't exist. 1% of all the kids who go to college will play for free. 1%. So we're forcing something. Again, it's an intrinsic force instead of an internal realization. And the children just, their brains, and they shouldn't, brains can't handle it. And so eventually they shut down. Like we thousands and thousands of children and thousands of games. And we've worked with doctors, athletic trainers, physical therapists. And we're seeing now children either faking injuries or playing with injuries and receiving injuries. The 12-year-olds are getting Tommy John surgeries. We're seeing injuries in children that we didn't see 20 years ago unless they were Division I athletes. So this way, I mean, again, I say it over and how is your way working? It's not. If you had a business and 70% of the kids quit, you'd be out of business.
Yeah, you'd be broke.
Well, my kid can. No. You know what? Go to the game. Don't say a word. Clap positively. Don't talk to the children about the game when you're driving them there, and don't talk about them. Like there's a big thing now around the world about they're saying, I love to watch you play. And it's very good. It's excellent. But the fact is, almost a third of the kids don't play or don't play a lot that are on these teams. Sometimes it's half. So by saying, I love to watch you play, and the kid doesn't play, he now feels he's let you down. Whereas simple, I hope you have fun, and on the way home, I love you, takes all that out of the equation.
Yeah, I remember, so on a few conversations ago with Lee, he said he timed like how much these kids like in an AAU game get the ball. And I want to say like it was like max 42 seconds like a game, which is insane, right? And they're paying, like I was talking about on that podcast, like my dad and I went and watched one game, because I wanted to go support another coach that was on this podcast, and it was like $100 between parking and gas and like all this. And like say I didn't even have a kid on the team, but like, if I had a kid like and they get 42 seconds times what do they play 46 games in a weekend, that's maybe 5 minutes of basketball, and they're paying like $500 for the weekend. Like that is it's pretty insane to me. So
if you go to our website, it's free, balanceexcellence.com. We will give you for free a form to fill out that will tell you what you're paying for your child to play travel sports per hour. And it's blank. You just fill in the numbers and then the total comes out. So there's no something to it. There's nothing. You just go and you print it out and you fill it out. And see, what happens is, Justin, whether it's AAU or it doesn't matter what it is, whatever travel program, but we're looking for special results. Mm-hmm. So let's just take it back to your child at home. If your child has a cold, well, you don't take him to a specialist. You take him to the pediatrician, and he probably gives you amoxicillin, and the cold is there. Because if you go to a specialist, you expect special results. And if I know now what I knew then about amoxicillin, I probably had it in every room in the house. Probably put it in there. Cereal. But we're trying, again, 99% of them will never play even college sports. So why it always kills me when they go, oh, we've got this ex-Division I player. He coaches our kids just like Division I or pro athlete. This is what the pros do. No. You just cut that right out. That you are exceptional. This is why we pay to watch you play. Because you're exceptional. You're genetic freaks. This is what sports is about, the best of the best. So play, age appropriate play, fun. Stop yelling. You should never yell at the children instructions while they're playing, ever. You just shouldn't. You watch most coaches, and truly a coach has about a 10% say in the outcome of a game once it started. That's it. It's 10%. 80% of the games are won by the team that has the most talent, gets off the bus when they get off the bus. Just let them play. I don't understand. I mean, my wife would comment when she came to college. My players would comment. You don't have much to say. And as I told you in the pregame thing, on the road and at home it was easy, but on the road we had a second locker room. I never yelled at my players, rarely yelled at them unless there was an injury they caused, and that was very few. We had a separate room where I talked to the guy individually away from everybody. There's no need. There's just no need. Do you want to get yelled at work? Do you want a boss yelling instructions to you all day? No. Well, then don't do it to the kids.
Yeah, I remember you were telling me, you're asking me about, my other consultant position, and you're just like, would you like your supervisor, when I'm, consulting and working with another organization, would you like him to be like, blah, 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 you need to make this play by telling them to, I'm drawing a blank right now, but needless to say, I don't want anyone on my butt, and I want to work autonomously. And I know that kids do too, right? At the end of the day, they want to be kids. And I'm curious about how you approach instruction, right? And you're talking about kind of shouting praise and whispering criticism. So with that, when you're I guess I'm thinking about practice mode right now, and you're noticing a mistake that a lot of, kids are making. Is that something that you obviously don't yell about it, but it's something you address, right?
You walk over to the kid where nobody can hear, you put your arm around them and you say, how's it going? Again, make it about them. How's it going? How'd that work out for you? I got a suggestion for you. Why don't you try that? But I don't know how far your podcast goes, and I don't want to embarrass this coach, but we're playing a huge playoff game, college hockey. And the head coach is fine, but the assistant coach is yelling instructions all the time. So my backup goalie, and our college is very academic. We graduated 21 years as head coach, 32 doctors, lawyers, and 28 engineers, because I thought that's how you kept score. So my backup goalie was literally a genius, which I used to chide the kids. You realize you're all playing for me and you're all smarter than me. I just want you to remember that one. But I said, here's what I want you to do, Don. I want you to listen what this guy says, because I think he's actually telling us how to beat him. When you're yelling these instructions, you're telling the other coach what your kids are doing wrong. You're telling them how to beat you. Why would you want to do that? Why would you want to give them that edge?
That's an interesting point that I'd never really realized.
I'm not just another pretty face, Justin, even though I got a face made for radio.
No, it's I think, I really appreciate the insights that you are, giving to myself. Obviously, I've honestly, selfishly, I've asked a lot of questions that I'm, kind of going through and challenged with. And I think one thing that I'm really I would like to know is, what is your number one way of building that influence and trust with other coaches to help them and keep passing this information along? Because I find that I don't want to be I'll say hey, Coach Bob, Coach, I see you, they're yelling, let's say they're yelling and I want them to do something differently. How do you approach that with other coaches?
You don't. We're trying to force. So what we do is we get a coach that believes, or a coach that's having trouble. I'll give you another example. We had an 8th grade coach we were working with, basketball, having all sorts of trouble. So I got him to do equal play for a half, just to see how it went. Went so well, he did it for the whole game. Came up to me and he goes, oh my gosh, VJ, number 3. And he told me the kid's name, but I said, what number? And he said, number 3 had his best game ever, 8 games into the season. More points, more assists, more rebounds than he had all year combined. Because we gave him an opportunity. So this coach, and I understand why they're doing it. They're trying really hard. But this coach was trying really hard to win, and he wasn't winning. So we got them to just take a step back and let the kids play, and they excelled. So the coach, again, the expression trying to preach to the choir, but there's an opposite. And please, to Justin's viewers, obviously by now you know I'm different, but this is an old saying, but it's true. Trying to get the coach to change is like trying to teach a pig to sing. It's a waste of your time and annoys the hell out of the pig. So what you do is teach the other guy. And then what that does to the coach, to you who's trying to do it, you start getting reinforcement. The amygdala, the firing of the synapses, the brain starts thinking in that positive note. And you start winning. When I said earlier, nobody knows how to win. But you come with us, we can really show you all that you need to do to put yourself in a position to win. We call it the Tiger Woods approach on Augusta Sunday, back 9. It's that and it's the same thing we're doing with the kids. We're trying to get all these kids to be better. No. They may not want to get better. They just want to play. They may be forced into the situation. What we want to do is get the receptors in their brains a positive experience so that they feel good about movement. That's it.
Yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. And I think that's a good way of me explaining it to some of the coaches and talking about it and showing it, because I think, sometimes like I'm noticing, and I'm actually transitioning out of it, is I see other coaches using like running and push-ups and stuff as discipline, right? But then you're kind of, what's the word? The kids are then going to kind of associate, that's the word I'm looking for, associate, running push-ups with, negativity and discipline. And I shouldn't do this. So just focusing on the positive aspects of it.
And we're still holding the kids accountable, but we're not forcing them. We're not putting them into, I like to use, and again, you got to be careful because it's 2022, but I like to compare it to whack-a-mole. Stop the whack-a-mole.
Yeah.
Okay? Let them all come up. Who cares? And now, I want to be very, very clear on this part. There are a bunch of organizations that if the coach doesn't win, they fire him on many levels. I'm not going to get into the details, but I've seen it. I've worked with these coaches. And there has to come a time where the coach has to say, am I willing to capitulate to that or not? And they go, oh, then what are we going to do? I can tell you, Justin, I speak all over the world. I don't travel now because I don't fly, but I have had to see at least 1,000 empty parks in my time. In the day of the internet, the day of the phones, you get one parent for safety, no instructions. You get the kids out onto a field to play and just let them play. Let them make up their own games. And we have a 20-step coach that we teach, a 20-step program we teach for coaches. We got a 6-step program if they just want a little thing. But again, the basic fundamentals is get them to enjoy movement. I don't care again, I'll give you another example. I'm working with a coach. This was a high school JV coach. And I just charted the game. One kid touched the ball 5 times more in terms of time than anybody else on the team. Okay, great. You got your best player of the ball the most time. Wow. And you looked at the kids on the bench and they were sullen and you weren't winning. And again, it comes back to how's your way working so far? Free play, pick up games. And let me tell the parents who are listening here, if you're told that your child has to play on a certain team with a certain coach, and especially if it's a college coach, do you really want your son and daughter playing for that person? You just think about that. Why would you want them? Forcing your child to do this so that you could help them in their career. No. when you're told you have to play at a certain spot with a certain team, if you're going to go, that should up to the next level. That should be a huge, huge red flag, because there's luck, there's timing, and there's health. And health is the most important. James Andrews has said right now, for a child to progress from one level to the next, it's not speed, height, size, weight, or talent. It's health.
Yeah, no, health is a big thing. Especially, I was amazed about that Tommy John surgery you talked about for the 12-year-old. I couldn't believe that.
And doctors are denying this, but we're getting reports that their kids are getting Tommy John surgeries before their elbows blow out.
Why?
Strengthen the elbow. And it's a misnomer to think that your elbow is stronger after surgery. What happens is the elbow starts to deteriorate and you're not pitching as well, and then the surgery gets it closer back to where you were. But for 99% of the kids, no, you don't pitch better. You don't play better.
Right. No, and I think that's an interesting point before we kind of making our closing, segment of this podcast. But really, just enjoying movement, I think, is really a big thing that I'm taking away. There's a lot that I'm taking away, but it's one of the most important things. And inclusion's always been something that has been big for me, because I rode the bench in varsity. Actually, I played in baseball. I rode the bench in varsity, so I have that understanding of what it's like, and I want to make sure all kids are included. So I think those are big. So
let me give you a quick thing. Hold on.
Yeah, please.
I interviewed Lou Vero, who is Mr. USA Hockey, Hall of Fame. He's missed everybody. If you know hockey, he's Mr. And it could be any sport. Coached the U.S. Olympic team, assistant coach at the NHL, blah, blah, blah. Was playing on a team. He's 75 years old, did an interview with me, playing on a team when he was 8 years old, freezing cold outside. This is almost 70 years ago, people. Freezing cold outside. There's only 9 players on the team. He never got in the game. You don't think these kids remember? And please, you're not toughing them up. You don't have a degree in psychology. You don't know what toughening up children is. Trust me, you don't. But this is, it's out of control. And I mean this, these people really, really mean well. But if you analyze it like I do and you listen, you will realize that you're being taught a race that doesn't exist. And the kids don't want it. 70% of them are quitting.
Yeah.
It's not like I'm making this up. I'm talking to you adults for the kids tell me. Because a lot of them are afraid to say anything. And that's a fact.
Yeah. That is fact. Honestly, I've asked a few times, like one of the last practice we had, we're working on cutting down our coaches at the end of the time. Sometimes we run overtime and coaches lecture. And I asked, I was like, be honest with me. How many of y'all really listen to the coaches at the end? And some of them at first were like, yeah, of course. I'm like, liars, liars, liars. And then we got the brave kid that's like, no, not me. And then the other ones are like, oh, we can say it. I'm like, no. I'm like, I know you don't listen. I'm trying to work on them and like keeping things short and sweet. So
21 years as a head coach in college, 3 in high school, coached 4 youth sports. After a game, my longest talk was 45 seconds.
That's pretty impressive. You should put that on your LinkedIn resume.
It's over. They're hungry. They're tired. They're worried about the car ride home. They want to play with their friends. They didn't play well. They played great. And by the way, it's way more important with girls because they're way more community orientated. Guys, we'll throw another guy under the bus to date a girl. Girls, if one girl on that team's not playing well and Susie and Debbie are her best friends, doesn't matter what they do, they don't feel well. And if Donna didn't get to play at all, they're all upset. And you know what? They all have to leave your team and go to school the next day. And don't tell me sometimes it's summer. They all have to go back to school. And it all reverberates through the hallways.
Yeah, 100%. So as we wrap up, our last thing is like what resources you talked about. You can talk about your website again, where people can find you, and then any last words you have for coaches.
I've written 3 books. They're on Amazon. I think now you can get them. I rarely get any money from them, so you can Stop the tsunami in youth sports, achieving balanced excellence and health while embracing the value of play for fun. The second one, less is more, the truth about youth and high school sports. You actually can get better at your sport with your child by him or her not playing it. And it really causes a ripple when I do that. And then one for the grandparents out there and the older parents is, does your mind what you're doing for your body? You can email me, vj@frozenshorts.com. Frozen Shorts is the umbrella company. It's for all the kids that sit on the bench needlessly in a youth sports game, freezing their butts off. And yes, that does happen in California. It's a metaphor.
Right.
I'll answer questions. We have a mentoring program. I really, if you have a question, it really needs to be talked to your child. The website is balancedexcellence.com. Everything's free on it. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and that's free. Everything's free until we do the mentoring, and then there's a list of what we do for pay. But the most important thing, if you're listening to what I had to say in the last hour, is don't take what I said and say, I don't believe in it, or I'm going to do it, either end of the spectrum. Let an event in your life, in your child's life, in athletics or school happen. And then go, oh, that's what that guy was talking about. Because it's the internalization that is the long-term effect for change, not the extrinsic force, which is the short term for glory.
There's no better way to finish it out. Thank you so much for your time today, VJ.
Justin, thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Bridging Impact Podcast. We'd love it if you would like, subscribe, leave a comment and a review on whatever platform you're on. It's the best way to help us grow. We appreciate you for doing that. We'll shout you out on social media. I'd also love if you connected with me on social media. Let me know your thoughts. And this is why I do it. I want to share knowledge and wisdom from experienced leaders to people like yourself and myself, so we can have this dialogue and move forward, make an impact on the world. So stay tuned, stay subscribed. Cheers.